Matt, great to catch up with you. We normally talk to you on the Racer's Edge, but right now you're wearing an Australian Open tennis cap. And very proudly too, I would imagine, been blown away by the quality of that website, the Oz Open 2014 website. And that's exactly what you've been working on, right?
Yeah, I have been, Peter. It's a whole. I'm a very small spoke and a very, very big wheel, but it's a site, the official site for the tournament, ozopen.com. If you haven't checked it out already, they certainly throw a massive amount of resource at it. From video, it has its own radio station you can listen to, enormous amount of photos, interviews with the players, all of the stories and everything going on around the precinct. So about as comprehensive as it gets. The figures year on year are considerably up from what I'm told, and obviously a lot of that is to do with who's still left in the tournament. I think the organisers will be very pleased that Lee Na is still going very well on the women's side, because there's quite a few clicks happening from China, as you can imagine.
I can imagine. And what impressed me massively was the social media side of it that you have this year, and how you're analysing the pro and against tweets, for example. A massive amount of data there. And just on that subject, I was interested to see that Borrell Del Potro from Argentina got pretty negative tweets from day one. I can't imagine why, bearing in mind he just won in Brisbane, I think, right?
He just won the tournament in Sydney in the lead-up. And perhaps that was part of it. He'd beaten Bernard Tomic, the young Australian, coming up, so perhaps that was part of it. But he wasn't in Melbourne long enough to attract too much negative publicity, because he was knocked out in the second round, which was one of the big surprises of the first week.
Yeah, but just going back to that social media thing, it does show some trends, and in itself is trend-setting in the way that this tournament and this event is being evaluated by the public.
Yeah, it is. I think one of the interesting things they've done there this year is they've created, out in the main Garden Square area where everyone tends to congregate, they've created a social shack, which is an area where people can stand outside, see what's going on, look at what's being discussed in the sport with social media, particularly Twitter, and the various players. But they've also had interviews. We've had players out there talking to the guys, interacting with the crowd, questions coming in from the crowd into the booth, and it's been the players have really embraced it. It was something that was done, pretty last minute, but done very well by the AO. There's a live ticker going across the top, tweeting messages from fans and from the players. I think the players have really embraced it. I think it's one of the beauties of the Australian Open. I think amongst the four slams, it's probably the one that's got the greatest scope to be the most innovative, because it's not Wimbledon, it's not Roland Garros. It's a new, young, vibrant slam. Yes, it's been going for a long, long while, but it's as a major Grand Slam event in this era, it's a relatively new event, and they try different things, and I think this is something that's been a huge success.
A brilliant atmosphere too. In that first week, incredibly hot weather, but amazing to see pictures from the crowd and how they were handling that, and almost kind of taking it on board as part of the scene.
Well, look, I think Melbourne's actually had a very mild summer until last Tuesday, which of course wouldn't have gone down brilliantly with the organisers. We had 4 consecutive days of 41 plus degrees here from Tuesday through Friday. Never actually happened in Melbourne before, so that's completely unprecedented. And of course, the first week, there's so much going on the outside courts, and there's so much to see outside of the stadium courts. So it was a difficult week for everybody. Obviously, the heat rule came into place at one stage on the Thursday, suspended play for a while. But fortunately, we got through it. But it was difficult conditions for everyone, for the players, for the spectators, and for the tournament. But of course, you'll be pleased to know, Melbourne being Melbourne, it's all completely settled down now.
Well, Melbourne being Melbourne, I was also very impressed to see that one guy being caught doing by-court, on-court betting. It worked out that he could send back the results of a game or a match or whatever, I don't know what, it's a set of how they were betting, with a 10-second delay or something back to the bookies. That was quite impressive, I thought.
Yeah, well, there's a very strict policy against that sort of thing, as you know, and Australians are... as you know, Peter, Australians are keen to bet on 2 flies crawling up a wall, so it's obviously something they've had to put in place, and not surprising that it happened, but also not surprising that he was found out too.
Well, spoken like a true member of the Australian Open website there, Matt. Well done. Let's look ahead now, because we had some amazing matches as well. Serena Williams and Sharapova are out on the women's side. That's, I suppose, it's no surprise in some respect with Sharapova, but Serena, what was your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, she's 32 now, Peter, and she seems to be just be getting better with age. She only lost 4 matches the whole of last year, looked completely imperious in the first couple of rounds, and came up against Anna Ivanovic. And Ivanovic is having this sort of belated career renaissance. She was #1 in 2008, really didn't stay there for very long and has dropped off a fair bit. And she has a very explosive game, probably one of the more explosive forehands in women's tennis. And Serena caught Ivanovic on a day when Ivanovic was on. Serena, as we found out afterwards, carrying a little bit of a back complaint, although I do take that with a pinch of salt. I don't think she's ever lost to anyone when she's been completely fit ever. But, you take as you may, Ivanovic was outstanding on Sunday. And I think everyone just expected Serena to roll through this tournament. You lose her one day, you lose Sharapova, a former winner here, the next day. The women's draw very much up in the air, but I think the way it's moving at the moment, last year we had a terrific final between Victoria Azarenka, who's the defending champion, and Li Na, who I mentioned earlier from China. It's looking very much like we're going to get those two again on the Saturday. Last year we got a fantastic match, so let's hope so.
When Serena loses, it's always a bit of a worry as to how she's going to handle it and what's going to happen in the press conferences. What was the atmosphere like after that?
Look, reasonably frosty. She was magnanimous to a point in that she said Ivanovic played really well and she did what she had to do. But then there was the quick qualifier that, well, I wasn't really at my best and I had a bit of a back injury coming in. And it's a bit of a recurring theme. It happened last year. She lost in the quarterfinals last year to Sloane Stephens, her young compatriot. Similar thing. So I think we're just so used to Serena rolling through these major tournaments. She's a 5-time champion here. She's had a massive amount of success. But there's always that slight, how is she going to handle when things don't go her way? She definitely is the queen bee of the female tennis circuit, and I think everyone was pretty shocked to see her go.
And when Anna Kournikova was at her peak in Australia, particularly, I remember the fans saying, "Go Anna, go Anna!" It was a really good, it was a great one. But Anna didn't make it through the next round, sadly.
No, she didn't. She was knocked out today by Eugenie Bouchard. And this is the real story, actually. She's the most popular player on the Australian Open website this tournament. She's a young 19-year-old Canadian hovering around the 30, I think she's the 30th seed from memory, but someone who's had no real success in Australia. She was out early last year. I think her rise through the draw, she's a good story. She's a fresh face. And people are really trying to find out, who is this girl? What is her background? And I was massively impressed today. She won a quarterfinal, came from a set down, played all the big moments really well, which I think is a really good sign for a teenager in a really big pressure moment on a really big show court in a Grand Slam quarterfinal. So she's obviously got a massive amount of talent and, first Grand Slam semi-finalist for a Canadian for about 30 years, I think. So they'll be pretty pleased in Montreal, and I don't think she's going to be a flash in the pan. There's a bit of steel with this girl that makes you think that she's going to hang around for a while.
And Greg Rosetsky, who's a sort of English-Canadian, getting very excited about that in the UK, of course. On the men's side, things shaping up very nicely as well. Although Del Potro out early, I think, was a surprise. A lot of people, I noticed on the polls you were doing, were predicting him, mind you, a lot of South Americans have to say, were predicting him actually to win the tournament.
Well, I think he's that guy that everyone knows at his best. He can topple this axis of the big four with Federer, Nadal, Djokovic and Murray. Unbelievably, Del Potro's the only guy other than those four to have won a singles tournament in the last 35 Grand Slam events. It just shows you the stranglehold that quartet's had. And Del Potro came in really good form, won the tournament in Sydney, and I think he was a little bit flummoxed. Played on the day where things were very delayed heat-wise, played a very, very late match on an outside court and ran into a young Spanish guy named Roberto Bautista who just played really, really well on the night, beat him in 5 sets. And I think there are a lot of those top four guys, they worry about someone like Del Potro. 6'6", he's got a huge game, but didn't advance past the second round. But as you said before, I think now, with these top guys still being in and some of the matchups we've got to come, the men's tournament is shaping up for an enormous finish here, and I think particularly in the UK, tomorrow night here, Murray-Federer in a quarterfinal. It's almost too good to be a quarterfinal, frankly, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think with Federer, we saw last year he dropped off his usual very high standards for a little while, but the way he played last night against Joe-Wilfried Tsonga didn't play a bad match, and Federer just blew him into the weeds. So I think tomorrow night will be a very, very busy night for the AO website and a lot of eyeballs tuned on that match.
Well, the Australian's very good, as I say, of encapsulating little situations with the right words. We had the gabatoir in the case of the cricket for the Gabba. We had goanna, and of course we have the Fedberg now, which is the new combination of Roger Federer and Stefan Edberg, looking very, very slick.
Well, interesting last night, some of the tennis that Federer played against Songer was a lot of serve volley stuff. And, you cast your mind back when shorts are a bit tighter and paychecks are a bit smaller, and it could have been Stefan Edberg out there. And it's this interesting trend at the moment with the big name players turning to former big name players to give them that little 2 or 3% maybe to push them over the top. We saw the impact that Ivan Lendl's had with Andy Murray. Novak Djokovic is now working with Boris Becker. You've got Michael Chang with Kei Nishikori, the young Japanese coming through. So, it does seem to be flavour of the month at the moment. Quite how the Fedberg situation will work out, we don't know. It's the first tournament. So, at the moment, though, I think the impact of someone like Edberg in perhaps getting Roger to rethink the way he plays was pretty evident last night. And it will be interesting if that's a tactic that he uses against Murray, and then if he gets through that going forward.
Matt, one final question. This year, the latest 2014 spec of Roger Federer, how is he? Is he really that nice a guy?
He lives up to every expectation you could possibly have from him. If the guy doesn't have a career working for the UN after he finishes playing tennis, I don't know what he's doing, but he has this amazing ability to make anybody feel important. And I remember a few years ago when he won the tournament here, he did his post-match press conference in about 5 different languages, went off and did a photo shoot, did everything else, and then wandered around the press room, going to each individual group, the French journalists here and the Germans here and the English here, just checking that everyone was okay and they had everything that they needed. Mind you, it's 1:45 on a Monday morning. He's got far better things to do than that, but just wanted to make sure everyone was good. You guys right, you got everything you need. He's an amazing ambassador for the sport and has one of those rare abilities that possibly only the best politicians have. Once he's met you and he remembers your name, it's locked in here. He never forgets. And the second time I had anything to do with him, I was quite taken aback by the fact that he remembered who I was, what my name was, and something about me, which was quite strange because he didn't have anyone whispering in his ear, telling him about things. And I later found out that this is just something that he does. Maybe I wasn't so special after all, but this is just something that he does with everybody, and it's just another one of the great talents that he has that contributes to the overall package that is Roger Federer.
Sounds just like your average typical Formula One driver. Not.
Well, not exactly. Most of them can't remember the names of their teammates.
Matt, as ever, great pleasure talking to you. I know you'll be a tired and busy boy in the days and the next days to come in the Australian Open. Good luck with that. Congratulations on that website and all the work that's going on with the team there that you're working with. And look forward to talking to you again very soon. Probably Australian Grand Prix time.
We'll do that. Thanks, Peter. Terrific.
Thanks, Matt.